All right, so we have a minute or so for anybody out there who's watching. Remember, start making your comments as well. So we're going to give it a minute or two. So it's 9 o'clock right now. See how this goes, how many people show up. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started then. This is the 100th episode of the Smart Rvers podcast. So it poses the question, how did we get here? So this is Eric Stark with the Smart Rvers podcast, delivering the smarts you need to enjoy the freedom of the RV lifestyle without the fear of breaking down. I'm going to take a second here just to make sure the comments are on. Just double checking. Bear with me for a second. Okay, so a little technical break there. So again, this is Eric Stark with the Smart Rvers podcast. So in this episode, this is my 100th episode for the Smart Rvers podcast / Radio Arizona RV. That's what the show used to be called. And then we rebranded to Arizona RV, or excuse me, the Smart Rvers podcast. So there's a lot going on here today. But before we get started, I want to introduce everybody to Alexis. Oh, she's not here, by the way. She has COVID, so she didn't make it. So we got her manager filling in for her. So Alexis, you've heard her on the show recently. She does all of the information for the next stop section of the show. So she's doing the research on the different places to go, the places that we're recommending to go. So she's looking up different places around the country. She compiles all that and we put it on the website as the episode comes out. So she has a nice part in the show, and also she works at the store. She works here at Highway 93 RV. She helps out in many different ways. She's not just helping with the podcast. She's helping out with the business in general, but she does a great job working for us, myself and my wife, which my wife, she's being represented by her manager today as well. She's not out with COVID, but she's downstairs running the business. It's to get away, so we have to do what we have to do. And so she supports the podcast by doing that. So there's a lot happening with the podcast, and that's what we're going to get in today too, is about the nuts and bolts, what it took to get here. So it's been a kind of a long journey, although 100th episode should have come much sooner, but I'll explain why it took so long. And it's not life-threatening information, things that are going to change our life or anybody else's life. Let me get rid of Karen and Alexis. Too much stuff here on the table. So there's just a lot of things that happen, take place. And I got two mouses here, so I'm going back and forth. Got two computers in front of me. So that looks kind of odd. So there's a valuable lesson that I've learned along the way of doing this podcast, and it really should help everybody out there who's listening. This podcast will be recorded. It's being live right now, but it'll also be recorded. But the lesson I'll explain as I go along here. I'm going to get into it in just a moment, but there's some other things we're going to talk about first. And that's just basically, what we're doing here. So if you have any questions about your RV, use the comment section of the YouTube and you can type out a comment. Make sure it's simple. We're not looking for complex stuff. This is the first live one of these I've done, so bear with me. So the comments, I'm assuming they're working. If maybe you want to throw a comment out there and let me see, and subscribe as you're going along. I'm not sure how many people are watching this right now. So I'm going to apologize now because it's the first time I've live streamed anything. So if there's any problems, I'm sorry. Let's get that off the table now. Okay, so there's a lot of things that we've covered over the years, and there's a lot of things I've talked about recently, and one of them was Expion lithium-ion batteries and how they perform against battle-borne batteries. So we're going to talk about that some today too. And I actually have a battle-borne battery sitting right here. and I'll give you my opinion of that particular battery. And also, please subscribe to the show and share it with your friends, neighbors, anybody else who might want to listen to the show and benefit from it. We know there's a lot of great information here, and as part of being in the RV community, sharing stuff like this so everybody has an understanding of what's taking place. So I've been talking also about coming to Montana in July. Montana is an awesome place. The state is just filled with activities. There's ATVing, off-roading, overlanding, snow skiing, water skiing, kayaking, canoeing, fishing, hunting, relaxing, hiking. There's just so much to do in this country, or this part of the country. Horseback riding, it doesn't end. And we're promoting this for July, to give everybody time to make some plans, but also while you're in Montana, to come by the store and meet us. Meet everybody here. We'll meet you. We're working on some plans for that, and we're trying to get stuff on the website, but there's a lot to a podcast episode, and we're very busy, not just with this, but with the store itself. So it's hard to get the website updated all the time. But, if you go on a map like Google Maps and you start looking at it, you're going to see a lot of different places to go. The western side of the state is much more green, more water, although the eastern side is cool in its own way. It's kind of like the high desert. But just about any way you want to get here, to Montana, you can make it to our store in the Bitterroot Valley in Victor, Montana. We're about 35 miles south of Missoula. So Missoula's a, big city on the map. So if you go straight south, you'll find us. It's pretty simple. So we're pushing that. We really want as many people to come by the store as possible. It's kind of an opportunity for us and for you so we can connect. We really enjoy that. And there's been some changes on the show. In January, I believe, we made a complete change to our format. So we now have the RV lifestyle section where we talk about the RV lifestyle, things that enhance it, improve it. And we're building on that. It takes a while to get into this groove, but we keep adding as, kind of going out from there, from the center of that out and finding more things. And so we try to get episodes ahead on that with information. And then the next section is Saying on the Road, where I talk about the RV maintenance and how to maintain your RV and the problems that RVers face and how to find the solutions. And then there's the next stop section. And that's where Alexis comes in. That's where we're, going horseback riding, or we're going to another city or another state to look at a national park like Utah, Arches National Park. RV Envy comes after that. And that's about new products or cool products. They don't have to be new, just cool things that will help your RV, enhance the RV lifestyle, make it more enjoyable. Like the Wear Safe GPS tracker. I've talked a lot about it. The Micro Air Soft Start for the air conditioners. That'll allow your air conditioner to run on a 2200 or actually a 2000 watt generator, And something new we're going to add is Real RVers, Real RV Stories. So I'm looking for stories from RVers who have experiences that they want to share. We're looking to widen that out. It's not going to be in every episode, but it's going to be added in from time to time. Along that same line, we're looking for information, content, experience from our listeners. The places you've been, if you can submit that with pictures, you can go to the contact us page on the smartrver.com and submit, a book if you want. Pictures. It doesn't matter if you have more than what you can, actually email. You can always put it in a Google Drive folder and share the link with me, and we'll look at that. And projects you've done. I know there's a ton of projects that everybody's working on all the time. They can truly benefit other RVers. Pictures of them, what you've done. And one that comes to mind is the one I just did on delaminating sidewalls. And the guy who I didn't know his name, so it's just the guy, the RVer who owned a Winnebago Journey, and I put a link into his project. And it's just all text and some pictures, but that really can give somebody the courage, seeing somebody else do it, how they did it, to take on that same particular project themselves. And then there's, so we're looking for that, different things, what you've done. or questions you might have. If there's things that you want answers to, if you email me or text me, you can even call. I certainly respond to everything. And that's part of the show here, is helping everybody to learn more about their RV. And I incorporate as much of this into the podcast as I can. I might not mention you by name. I might just mention it came from an email, but I try to bring it into the podcast. And there's still some things out there for some of the listeners that I haven't brought in yet. It's on our schedule. We got a schedule and everything gets put on the schedule. And sometimes it takes a while to get to each point. But the bottom line is, I want to hear from you. I want to know what's going on out there in your life experiences with RVing. And also, just so you know, I'm looking at different things today because I have a webcam in front of me. I've got a camera over here. I've got a microphone here because we're recording this live on the podcast, or not live on the podcast, but it's going into the podcast recording machine here, the great, awesome Rodecaster Pro. And then, of course, there's another microphone in front of me. There's lights in here. So there's a lot of things happening in front of me. And like I said, this is the first time I've done this. So that's why my eyes are wandering in different places. And I got a really bad habit of looking at the screen rather than looking at the camera. So I apologize for that as well. So how did I get here to this podcast, and what made me decide to do it? I probably should have reversed that. What made me decide to do the podcast, and how did I get here? So this whole project started back in 2016, and it was during the summer, one of those hot summer months in Welton, Arizona, 116 degrees out, blistering heat, sitting inside the store, thinking about customers and how they come in with so many problems that they can't seem to find answers to. And, I always have helped people find those answers. In fact, in the past, I've done websites. Like one, for example, was the website called trailersafety.com. It was about travel trailers and their tires, and how they or trailertiresafety.com, but how they have so many problems. And so that kind of got the ball rolling, if you will. But that was, back in 2012 or so. And so I've done a lot of websites, things like that. There's always articles on our websites. But the problems people face is just ongoing. And sometimes the expression on their face, they can't find a solution. They're very glum. They're frustrated. And you hear that in their voice. You see it in their face. So I thought this would be a great way to start helping people, to help RVers. And, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of things that people pick up on. They listen to, they try to learn, but it's still finding information. It's gotten so much worse since then as well. Since 2016, customer service and support has just fallen. It doesn't really exist anymore. And you've probably experienced that. I know I do. I'm a consumer. I buy things, and, I shop for stuff, and you try to get more information. It doesn't happen. There's a problem with an order. Maybe you place it on the internet and you can't call anybody. You have to go through emails, and it takes days at a time. It's frustrating. Or you want to buy something and there's just one question you have about it and you can't get an answer to it. And then you go to other websites and they have the same content on their page. They just copy and pasted it from the manufacturer's website. So it's frustrating, and I get it. So that's where this podcast basically came from. It's out of looking at the frustration of others. So to get this thing started, I had to decide, okay, I'm going to do a podcast. I have some computers. That's the easy part. I have a place to do it. It wasn't the ideal place for doing a podcast, but it would work. It had a steel roof on the inside, galvanized tin. It was my office. It looked like a garage, but it really wasn't. So I went out and bought some basic equipment, a little headset with a microphone on it, and went home and, after purchasing that, tried it and did some basic little episodes or portions of episodes, listened to it, how it sounded, downloaded it, or, took it off my computer, uploaded it to a website, did some things like that. Okay, that's pretty easy. Then my wife and daughter would listen to the episodes or what I was talking about. And they're amused by it, and decide, yeah, let's go ahead and do this. So at that point, if we're going to do it, it's got to be done right. And so that's where research starts coming in. And this is really where the lesson is going to come from, which I'll get to in a couple minutes. So the research on equipment for podcasting took some time. And, going to different websites and looking at, podcasters and what they're recommending, it becomes just this confusing mess out there, a blob of information that you can't really mesh it together to find one really good answer. It's just a blob, unfortunately. So you have to start taking notes, writing things down, what you caught, what you think might be of value. And then each guy is trying to sell you on training. They want you to sign up for training with them. And, it's not cheap. It's either, $800 or $8,000, to do these lessons. And it's for so long, some of them are longer than others, might be 2 weeks, might be 2 months type of thing. But it's a lot of money, a lot of time. And like looking at their websites, and I even talked to some of them, you really don't get the feeling that you're going to walk away with much more than what you've already gathered for free on the internet. And there were no real solid answers to it either. It was always vague stuff. And they left it vague to get you to sign up to pay more money. But I never got the feeling they're really going to give you the information that you truly needed to make this work. And one thing I noticed too is there's this constant push about technology. You got to have the best technology. Your audio recordings have to be, spotless clean, nothing wrong with them whatsoever. That has to be the most meticulous thing you do, and so you're reading this and then, okay, what equipment do I need? And see, that's where it starts to fall apart again. The high quality audio is I think a given. That when they started, they used, low quality stuff. Don't use great stuff today, but you have to have high quality. So it's kind of ironic how all this came together. So buying equipment, trying to figure it all out. Don't buy cheap equipment. You got to buy the best. One of the things that I found is like the microphones. This microphone was about $150, but the one they push is a Heil PR40. And they're like $425. I actually have it sitting right over here. I took it out for this episode. I actually do like the microphone, but it's not everything it's cracked up to be. This $150 microphone for what I'm doing today is actually working better. It picks up my voice at a greater distance. But, that's one thing. And then equipment, how to record this. So, you're just going on and constantly looking at equipment, buying equipment. You're buying cables to put it all together. You can't buy it without connecting it. So next thing you know, I have a rack on my desk with equipment on it, a mixer, a device to connect the mixer to my computer. Then you have a power softener. So everything plugs into it. It protects the equipment. Then there's, a Behringer gateway. Can't think of all of it now. Gateway switch, which handles the mic, how it opens and closes the microphone. Then there's a headphone splitter, so you can have multiple headphones. It just becomes all this stuff. And every episode becomes this job to do. Like, how much time is it going to take to produce an episode, to get all these wrinkles out? Because there was always problems in the equipment, noise, poor filtering, poor this, poor that. So I'd work through it and I'd do episodes and nope, can't use that one. Can't use this one. Keep going back to the internet, and just, there were no answers there really that solved any problems. So I just figured out I got to dig into it and learn the equipment beyond what I really need to know and try to make it work. So that's what I did. But every episode, no matter what I did, if I left the studio, turned off the equipment, went back the next day, turned on the equipment to do another episode, there would be problems. I'd be monkeying with the settings again for another hour to do an episode. So it became very frustrating, discouraging. It's like, I don't even want to do this anymore. but I wanted to do the podcast. I enjoy doing that and helping others. And finding time was a struggle too. So digging into this, more and more, I'm finally getting it tuned in a little bit better in Arizona. Then we moved to Montana, different room, different surroundings. So I had to build walls, make the room smaller so there wasn't as much noise and, echo, things like that. And even for videos, complete change in lighting, which took, countless hours to get it dialed in. Even today, right now, this is the first time we've done anything in this studio as far as videos go. So the lighting is probably a little off. And this is after, we got a lot of lights in here. There's 8 lights in here right now. Then the overheads are off. So there's a lot to all this. But anyways, getting off track here. So finding time, discouragement. And, the quality was slowly coming. I started sending out the podcast episodes after I recorded them to Fiverr, where they would edit them there. And they would do a good job for a while. And then it would just go away. They wouldn't do the great job. And so it was going from guy to guy. And today we edit the episodes in-house, at least for the time being. I'd like to get them farmed back out, but because we went to this new format, the rebrand, it's easier to do it here. But the thing that really made the podcasting thing simple, if you ever want to do a podcast, all you have to do is, maybe you can't see it, maybe you can. There's a Rodecaster Pro sitting right here. This bad boy does it all. One piece of equipment. You can plug it into your computer or not. It has an SD card slot. You can just record to an SD card. You can buy Rodecaster microphones. This isn't a Rodecaster, it's a Mictronics. But you can buy a Rodecaster microphone that's matched to the Rodecaster Pro. Rodecaster makes awesome equipment, and it made my life so much easier. I'm not going to say it was a lifesaver, but it was a game changer. It changed it immensely. But time was still an enemy, finding time to do the podcast, preparing the information, because there's a lot that goes into it. There's much more than just sitting down and talking. And, I have a knack to be able to just sit down and talk, but we always have to have scripts, like not a script, but notes. Like in front of me, there's a 65-inch TV and there's notes on there, and, to keep me on track here. Otherwise, I'll really go rambling, which is good in a way. But, time was still the thing, and it's getting better now. We get busy, but I'm trying to find more people to come in and help me with the show. If they can post stuff to the website, things like that, because the less I have to do and just focus on the show itself, the easier it is. So in time's an enemy everybody faces, where there's only so many hours in a week. So working plan for the weekend, something comes up and it derails it. Then you plan for the next weekend, something comes up, because you just run out of time. There's only so much you can do. Or you look at your RV, or your wife says, or your spouse, are you ever going to finish that? You're going to finish that project, but you're just out of time. So time will always be an enemy, but there's things we do to help it. So the podcast has a lot to it. And then, like doing this live today, a lot more to it. Videos that I do, a lot more to it. And I'm not complaining. Believe me, this is just part of the fun, especially if you get to buy something new, some new piece of technology. That's cool. I like buying stuff that's helpful, and I love technology. And so, the lesson here is, well, actually, let me back up for a second. November of 2021, so November of last year, I contacted a man named Tim Wolberg for coaching. And this guy is awesome. Him and his wife, Valerie, just the most helpful people. And it went against everything I've ever thought about coaches and stuff like that. Him and his wife were so helpful. And the rebrand came from that. The new show was born. The smartrver.com was born. The new format was born. And it really helped a lot. And it got me more on track on what the show should be about. And it's something for everybody now. Now we're trying to make it for everybody. But the lesson I learned was, when you go online trying to do research to fix your RV, your air conditioner is not working, your furnace isn't working, it can be so confusing. And I hear this from so many people. They come into the store, they call me on the phone, I get emails, text messages. They've been to, 50 YouTube videos. They can't figure it out. They've called stores around them. They won't help them. And that's what I alluded to earlier. Customer service is gone. You call an RV store for help, even if you're going to buy the part from them, they don't want to help quite often. And that's where the lesson is. You have to really sort through it and find one or two sources, maybe 3 or 4 that are going to help you. And that's what I try to do. Everything I talk about, every product I talk about is things that I believe and trust in. I'm not going to give bad information out. My store here in the Bitterroot Valley is known, and I've been here for 4 years. We have a reputation for helping people and helping them solve their problems. We sell ourselves as the do-it-yourself experts. On every advertisement we do on the radio stations around us, we advertise we are the do-it-yourself experts. Come see us. And we don't charge for it. And that has snowballed into people from all over Montana, actually people from all over the country calling us for help because we help people. And we truly like doing that. So that's the point of what has taken me to get here. All the frustrations I had, it really wasn't clear on what to do. And so you have to figure it out on your own sometimes, but be careful what you're listening to and reading on the internet as far as RV repairs go. Some people have done some pretty bad things based on what they saw in a YouTube video or what they saw on a website or they read here. And I'm not saying all of it's bad, but you have to find some sources that you can definitely trust. And hopefully I'm one of those sources. Because many people trust me. I have good information, very helpful. So that's the big lesson out of what I've learned here. And it might not be gigantic, but to me it is because it's changed the way I do everything now. Even medical stuff. I never go to the internet for medical anymore. If I got something, cut my arm off, I'm not going to go to WebMD because it's just going to tell me I'm going to die and my other arm's going to fall off. It might be an exaggeration, but that's what it seems like. So you have to be very cautious. Find some experts, especially if you can get an expert in an RV store near you. That would be awesome. That's the way to do it. So along those same lines, lesson learned, but also I'm always looking for new ideas and products for the show, which I talked about a minute ago. So if you have any thoughts, things you want to share, please do. And also, share the episodes with your family, friends, fellow RVers. There's a lot of information here to help them, and we appreciate it when we get the likes and we get the people subscribing to us on YouTube. They're going to our podcast. That helps us. It benefits us. We see the numbers increase every month, from 50 people listening back in 2016. Thousands upon thousands of people now. It's awesome. We love it. So subscribe and like us wherever you can. All right. So we got one here. You are my go-to. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Definitely like that. So now let's talk about batteries for a moment. I had been talking about on the last couple episodes, building this up for Battleborn batteries and Expion 360. So I'm being a little cautious here. I've decided that to kind of change my tune on this. We've worked on a video. We've recorded the actual cutting open of a Battleborn battery. So this is the real deal. Here's the bottom half. So this is a genuine live battery. This battery will work right now, 12 volts, 100 amp hour, $900 battery that we cut open to look at it. I wanted to see for myself what kind of quality went into this battery. They're not cheap. There's a lot of them out there. They've done great with promoting their brand. They've done a really good job with that. And this battery is not a bottom of the barrel battery. So please don't walk away from this episode thinking that. If you already own this battery, that's okay. You didn't buy a horrible battery. It's a good battery. It's just not as good as what I want to sell in my store or talk about. And I've actually done an episode, a podcast episode in the past about this particular brand. but I've changed my tune. I started hearing reports of this battery falling apart prematurely. People that had them in boats, they were rattling apart. And it's a sealed battery. What I mean is the case is sealed. So I literally had to cut this off with a circular saw, a small circular saw, cut around the edge because it's glued together. It's like gluing ABS together. You can't undo it. So if the battery fails, there's no repair. And that's the same with all lithium batteries. In fact, all batteries in general, you don't take a battery apart to repair it. So you're stuck with it if it fails. And like some car batteries, like a Prius, you can actually take those out and replace cells. Much easier to do than this. But so that's where cutting it apart came in. I had to cut it open. So this cost me that money out of my pocket. I did this on my own. I had to see for myself. So I kind of think that way, let's cut it open and see what we got. And that's what I did. And so overall, the battery is there. You pick it up, it flexes quite a bit. But, that's the cells hanging on the front here. But you can see that they're flexing, bouncing around. And one of the things that was a little disturbing to me is when we cut it open, we actually had it upside down and pulled the case up, this way from it. And these fell out. So there's spacers in here, these rubber pads, which we believe went on the side of the case, one on each side. Then there's different spacers here. There's what is there, about 6, 7, 8 of these, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 of them, different thicknesses. Not exactly sure where these fell out from. We didn't catch it. I haven't gone back and looked at the video because we just did the video yesterday. Haven't had a chance to go back. So these were in there. Got to wonder about that. And if you look in the case, show it to both here. There's nothing in the case whatsoever. It's just a box, like a shoe box. Nice and thick. It's a nice box. Trying to think what I could use this as a box for. An ammo box, a storage box. Make a lid for it. Nice quality. But without any molding in there, there's no way for it to support the cell, this portion of it, without the spacers. So the spacers have to be in there to keep the battery from bouncing around and rattling. But this battery is gaining a reputation, from what I hear from people, that it's falling apart. Now it has a 10-year warranty, and if it's warranted, that's great, but you still don't know what happened to it because you can't open it up to see. And more than likely, you'll have to send it back to Battleborn. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they'll probably want to know what's going on with their battery as well. So that's some of the issues, or one of the issues. And then there's these bolts here on the side of the case, or on the side of the cells. Now I put a wrench on these and just touch it with my finger, and it loosened up on all of them. There's 5 total. There's a plastic one on this side. Right here's the plastic one. But these ones just loosened up as well, just with a finger. No effort whatsoever. And that's concerning because how come it loosened up so easy? Now, we all know that bolts loosen up in a car if they're not tightened properly, they don't have a lock nut or a lock washer, or they don't have thread lock, something on them. These don't seem to have anything on them to stop them from loosening up. Major concern for me. Major concern. Here, where the plates are put on, this one on it and it just tore. So these metal plates connect all the cells. I don't know if you can really see the circles here, but there's individual cells, it's a zillion of them, just little batteries basically, and then they're soldered onto the plate. There you can see little, weld marks, spot welds, but it just tears right off. And that's a concern. And will these eventually just start rattling apart? Will each side have its problems with these spot welds? Are they just going to break off? That's what I think is going to happen. So I will not sell the battery anymore, unless somebody absolutely has to have one. But Battleborn has made it harder for dealers to buy from them as well. You have to buy in at large quantities, and that's okay. That's fine. But because of that, it's not the battery for me. It's not the battery I'm going to sell in my store, because I want to make sure I sell a battery, even if it has a 10-year warranty, that it's going to not have any problems before then. If it fails just because it fails, you know, some cells go bad, that's one thing. But if it starts falling apart, that's another. And you'll never know that because you can't take it apart because it's a sealed battery. So you have the spacers that are an issue, a case that is not designed to hold this particular cell. To me, it almost looks like a generic case. You would just buy these from somewhere overseas, and then you make your cell, and then you pad it or space it out to drop it in there and make it fit, and then sell it that way. And that might work in a lot of cases, but in the applications that we sell in, which is, you know, RV, off-road, overlanding, it's a concern. So we've switched to the Expion 360. Now this is a 24 series, so it's a little smaller. This is a dummy battery, so it's real light. Just throw it around. But their cases are made to hold the cell. Each case is molded to the cell, so there's no spacers inside. Where they attach, you can put bus bars on here or cables, and they do sell the bus bars. It's a friendlier case. Grommets on the bottom, so it's not going to be rattling wherever it sits. It actually has a strap that's removable. This particular brand, no strap on it, so you have to carry it, you know, manhandle it. Nice strap. It comes off too if you want to take it out. Real simple, goes back on. And yeah, it's not a high-end strap, but it doesn't need to be. It works for what the battery is and how often you're going to use it. But these also have mounting systems as well, where you can actually mount the battery and you don't have to use a strap, or you don't have to use a box. They actually have mounting brackets. Use a box if you wanted to, depending on the application. That might be go. This one doesn't really have any provisions for that. On the side here, over here, you can run a strap through it and over, but a strap on an $800 or $900 battery just doesn't work for me. A tie down system that maybe is $50 or $60, that works for me. Yeah, it adds to the price of the battery, but you buy it once and you're done with it. Don't we buy quality for a lot of other things that we put in our RVs, our homes, our cars? It's quality. 12-year warranty. It's not going to fall apart. So this now is the battery that we're getting behind. And so far, we've had good success with it. We've had no issues, and we love it. And it's a great company to work with. Super friendly. They take care of the customers. In fact, that's how I actually got started with the battery. So I called one day for a question I had about a battery monitor, and they were so helpful, so friendly. It just kind of led to more and more. And after many discussions, seeing this battery apart and how it's built changed my mind. And speaking of which, every part in here is machined. It's not cut on with 10 snips or a brake of some kind. Every connection inside of it is mechanical. I think there's 1 or 2 solder points, and that's it. All the mechanical connections are backed up with a locker of some kind, whether it's lock nuts or lock nuts and epoxy. It's designed to not come apart, not to fall apart. And I'm not going to cut another one open. I already spent enough money on this one cutting it open. I'm not going to do it on this one. But the battery, and besides that, I've seen how they're built. And they are built well, and they actually put all that on their website, Expion 360. So you can check out their website. They do an awesome job with their battery. So it really is a game changer for the entire battery world, or lithium battery world, if you ask me. And lithium batteries really are the future. Well, not the future, they're the now. You know, they were the future, now they're now. And so we should want to use one of these batteries if it makes sense. Not every application is going to be practical for a lithium-ion battery, but every application should have one, but the practicality might not warrant it. So that has to be a concern, you know, for each individual RVer. Will it work or not? And I get that. You know, the people are coming in the store and they love it. They want to buy a lithium-ion battery, but it's like, I use my RV once a year for 1 week going hunting. I can't justify it. You know, my spouse won't let me justify that. And that makes sense. Even for me, I don't use my RV that much right now because we're so busy doing other things, you know, the business and just stuff. So I can't see putting one in my RV at this point. but it's definitely on my to-do list down the road. I'm doing other things. Like I have a truck that we take off-roading, overlanding, and I'm putting solar on it. I'm putting an inverter in it, and that's just more for playing around with it. I've bought the stuff and just to experiment, if you will. But as part of doing it, and I'm putting wet cell batteries in there, I might switch over to the Expion 360 and go with the 24 series, maybe a 60 amp hour battery, only because they're a little bit cheaper, and that's probably all I would need with dual batteries in the back of the truck. And by the way, lithium batteries, they can be mounted anyway, sideways, upside down, doesn't matter. They don't gas, and it doesn't matter what brand it is. They do this, they work the same way. It's just the quality. And avoid super cheap batteries, even flooded batteries. Don't spend money on batteries that just seem to be really inexpensive. And what a great deal. Generally, it's not a great deal. And I've talked about that, but lithium ion batteries, now I can get lithium ion batteries for $200 each, $200. And it looks like a $200 battery, and it probably performs like a $200 battery, and it has a $200 battery warranty, and they're just not worth it. $300, $400, $500, you're not there yet. You've got to spend the money. And talking to customers in my store, because we have the batteries on display, we hear a lot of their experiences. They have a tendency of thinking they got a good battery until they've had it for a little while, then they realize it's not so good. And so they share that with me, hey, I didn't buy one of your batteries, but we did get one, and well, it hasn't really performed like it's supposed to, not like what others have. One of my friends has this brand, and it performs much better. So just be aware of that. So now, are there any questions that anybody has about their RV that we can spend a few minutes on here? I've kind of rambled on for almost 42 minutes, 45 minutes. So if there's any questions, because we're going to come to the end of the show here. I didn't put a start or a stop time on it. Just wanted to see how it went, but wanted to cover that ground on what we went through, the lessons learned. It's a good experience doing this episode 2 live. Maybe we'll do more in the future. It's not normally what I do, but the podcast is really it. And I know some podcasts are recorded today on video for YouTube, and I did a few episodes, and then I was told I really shouldn't do that. Just stick with doing the podcast episode and forget the video, but maybe I'll go back to it. I don't know. There's always things changing. So if there's no questions, I think we've come to the end. The end of the show for today anyway, the 100th episode. So I want to thank everybody for listening to the show, for tuning in today on YouTube. And this episode will be recorded, or it has been recorded, and it will be on YouTube after the fact, so you can come check it out. And I know this is a big weekend too, so not as many people are focused on what's happening on YouTube as they are getting ready for their trip. And also, we didn't get to getting this episode out to as many people as we should have. I have an email list with 10,000 people on it, and I blew it. I completely forgot to use it. Alexis was sick all week this week, and it threw us in turmoil in the store. We were super busy, just couldn't get to things. My mom is in the hospital. It's just been insane. My mom's 84, doesn't look good. She's in California. I'm in Montana. Just before the show started, I got a phone call from my brother. He's down there with her. So things are just happening. So this week has really gone bad, but I thought, no, I'm going to do this episode because this is part of it. Sometimes we just got to do it. And own an RV, sometimes we just got to do it. And that's what I was talking about earlier, getting that courage to, sometimes to take on a project. It seems so daunting, So we come to the end of the show and I'm still talking, but that's me. And that just made me think about that. I've taken on projects before. And my wife is like, are you going to do that? Really? Oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And, I just buy the stuff, think about it, plan it, and determine how I'm going to do it. It's just like cutting this battery open, expensive battery, one shot to do it. I can't just keep cutting open batteries to get it right. I don't want to ruin the battery. So I just thought about it, planned it, figured where I should cut, looking at how they're glued together, and decided to come down here about 3/4 of an inch and setting the depth on the saw right, and it worked. And even here, I went a little bit deeper there and those on each side, you know. So it's just getting that courage, getting the nerve to do it. But it just takes doing it. Sometimes you buy the equipment and get what you need, the tools, the repair parts, and just think about it and step into it. You know, there's always a way out. There always is a way out. And nothing's impossible. Now it sounds cliche, but really nothing is. I mean, I've taken on projects that are absolutely huge. You know, in my garage, I rebuilt my V10 engine in my garage. There's a, you know, I did an episode, part of an episode on that. You know, there's pictures on the website, you know, and I hadn't done an engine in years, a lot of years. So it was a little daunting, but you know what? An engine's an engine, really. A little newer, you know, idlers on the cam chains or the timing chains, things like that, but it's all right. Van's still running to this day. Drive it every day. I love that vehicle. Okay, so for now, for real, we're gonna say goodbye. And I again appreciate everybody listening to this podcast, tuning in on YouTube. So like us on YouTube, like us on, share our episodes with others. You know, it really helps us. It builds up the credibility of the podcast, credibility of what I do, and I appreciate it very much. So this is Eric Stark with the Smart RVer podcast. It has been great hanging out with you today. So if I don't see you on the road, let's connect the next time I do a YouTube live video or on the smartrver.com.